All our vibrations to Wazani, Milan, Avusheni, which is where the sun rises. It is I, Tulufelo Punganya Katebe, the Lenora of the sky, the son of the mountain, and the father of the sun. Um, I'm going to experiment and see if you guys will hear me. I didn't bring a microphone, in order that. Um, but, I mean, if it doesn't work out, I'll just give you these visuals and I'll probably just record it in a more soundproof place. But that ain't even the point of why we're here. The point is to have a conversation of relation, to raise vibrations. We are tuning into the divine radio station of the Most High. And at this point, we're exploring the Anahata Chakra, the heart chakra. And funny enough, the color of the heart chakra is green. And green is known to arouse creativity. Funny enough. I don't know where that intersection comes in, but creation is love. I definitely can look at it that way, that love is part of creating and creating is part of love. So, and love is the greatest creator. So, I think the best place is for me to personalize it and only speak from a point of spiritual theory, but I'll talk about my experience of love. I mean, if I speak from the foundation, I'm lucky to have been loved from the beginning by a woman, by my mother, and having known that love and having experienced that love in a pure fashion, um, in a whole own way, my mother introduced me to the divine feminine. She didn't need to know it in theory. She didn't need to cosplay into it. It was just coming truly from her Anahata Chakra. And because it came from a pure place, God works through her. God works through her in how she works as a mother. And when you allow your body to be a vessel of the Most High, that is when you tap into a power and even beyond you. Because for a certain chapter in my life, maybe from like a toddler till 8, 9, 10 years old, my mother's voice was the voice of my conscience. So before I do anything, I think maybe all the way until I was 12, probably. I think 12, 13, teenagehood is where it started. I started having to develop my own voice, and that voice wasn't, I had not surpassed, I had grown to a stage where I needed to build my own voice. And then that took a whole other 12 years. But for a long time, what I thought was my conscience, or what I thought was my mother, was my conscience. She gave life and gave form and gave spirit. So in a way, her love, God initiates all of us as children, and gives us the anointing. But then it's our mothers who really usher us into our Christendom. I mean, even my spiritual relationship began with her. Even though it is through the scope of religion, the truth of the spirit is still there in the experience. Now, I may have decided to expand the horizons of my spiritual expression more than a doctrine, right? But that foundation is there, and that foundation played a part, and plays a part to this day. And I think having that open relationship also allowed me to have an open relationship with myself, and therefore have the ability to listen to myself, to listen to what my heart says, what I think, my own voice. And that is one of the most loving things ever done for me, because that helped shape and form what I call me, what has given me more compasses in life, and that's why even in the Bible they say guard your heart, because everything flows from it. Now, out of all the chakras, it's the one in the middle. So there's 7 on this dimension of being a flesh human being. So with the seven, there's one, two, three, and then there's the heart. And then there's one, the solar plexus, the sacral chakra, the root chakra. Mhm. So it is at the nexus. It is at that energy point where everything meets. And, it's almost like the circle of energy is our infinity, And that is why it's so powerful, because it can really be the compass for your life. It can be what helps sustain you through a lot of things. You know, there's so many movies where they say, it's heart that's what separates the warrior, the hero. Even in sports, it's like he's got heart. And I'm even failing to find the words, because it's bigger than words, it's bigger than thinking, it's bigger than intellect, it's bigger than academia and books and studying. It's here. And that is how you govern yourself. Once you are able to listen to that voice, because now there's so many other things that validate themselves more in this world, like our logic, the textbooks that you was, the colonialism, all these people that have captured your mind and captured your soul and told you what's right and wrong. I don't need a book or law to tell me killing someone is wrong. I can feel it. I can feel it. And my ability to be able to listen and feel, right, also helps me navigate the duality of life. Because let's say somebody was robbing my house. Do I now, because I've been taught the idea of peace and of love, the idea, does love in the form of letting somebody abuse me and abuse the people I live with, does it come in the form of letting that happen, or does it come in the form of protection? Protecting what's yours, protecting your people, protecting your family. Because in my understanding, in my experience, we've been given everything as humans, including the rules, but we're not controlled. We're given free will. So, at the end of the day, on this earth, it's up to us to govern ourselves in a way we can hold ourselves accountable for. What is going to sit right on your heart? And don't lie to yourself, because that's the problem, that we lie to ourselves. We do heinous things, we harm people, and we convince ourselves that it's not a big deal. I can even give you an example. The violence, when there's this white genocide situation, I hate to get political, but I'm not getting political. I'm being very human. It's a human conversation on what happens to humans. The white genocide conversation, the origins of that is because there's a deep sense of violence that happens in the Afrikaner settler community, right? And now, where does that violence come from? When you are taking over a new space and eradicating people, killing people, and waging violence on them, right? Because people will always say that if karma was real, then why are people who have done this and this not feeling? People aren't going to come and tell you about the consequences of their action. When you make a mistake and you start seeing all the consequences, you don't announce it to everyone that, hey guys, actually, I did this and this is why this is happening to me. You don't do that, so why do you expect the whole community of people to do that? You understand? So the karma isn't that the same thing is going to happen to you. It's that what you do impacts you. Your hand is not separate from your actions. And if you've got blood on your hands, it doesn't mean that maybe somebody else is going to kill you, but the impacts of your action follow you. Another example, people who sleep with other people's girlfriends, they find it the hardest to trust somebody in a relationship. They could meet somebody who's legit and they wouldn't feel safe anyway. That's karma. That's the fact that you have messed up the safe space of so many people. You can't even believe in a safe space anymore. You understand? So that is what the heart is there to protect us from. When we listen to our heart, then it protects us from ourselves. You know, um, and I had a whole parable or question about this. This is a very pretty waterfall, but to a certain degree, it's not real. Um, this water is pumped; it's not just like rainwater, and I'm sure there's some form of electricity involved in making sure that this thing that people have paid for keeps happening. Whereas in nature, it's reinforced by God's natural element. You know, and the water is always flowing, and the water is always clean because it's within God's natural element. You know, and it's lovely and it's beautiful, and I appreciate that it's given me a simulation of what I've experienced on the mountain, but I can still feel that it's a simulation. Now that also begs the question, Unity, is love that looks real, is that real enough? I'll leave that to a question. I'm not going to be judgmental. I'm going to say that whenever something is rehearsed, whenever something is paid for play, and it's not natural, then there are certain nutrients that are taken away from that experience. It's not as nourishing because if you had to pay for it, it might not have been yours in the first place. And now you're paying to steal it. Because what's yours is yours. And there's a difference between funding something and taking care of something. Taking care of something might need funds, but there's an energetic difference. If I'm climbing the mountain and I want to experience the waterfall, there is an element of sacrifice. Climbing that mountain, going through the motions, going through what comes with, if I want a real experience, there will be challenges along the way. But the difference is, those challenges are rewarding because they build me. There's a difference between challenges that are just tearing you apart and challenges that are building your character, building your mind, building your body. So when you climb, when you hike, you are physically challenging yourself in a way that activates your body in ways you didn't even know. You're learning about yourself by engaging with your natural element. Here, it's all paved. They've all paved the way to give us a piece of it in the city. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying that there is an element that's taken away from the experience by making it convenient, by making it pay for play. I just pay the money, I get to walk, and then I get to feel like I'm amongst God's nature. There is a little bit of God, but there is human temper. And I think we should also consider love in that way. That love is yours. And you don't need to manipulate for that love. You don't need to lie for that love. As soon as you need to do that in order to sustain it, it's not yours. It's not yours. And when we talk about love, we're not only talking about the romantic aspect of it. We're not only talking about Jordan. But it's about love as a frequency. If I say my passion is music, but if I don't go to music school, then I can't be a musician because I have to fund it, then it's not for you like that. Because people will find a way to make their music. If that music is their love and their passion, they'll find that way. And yes, it's gonna cost money and studio time. But the journey in order to acquire those things, it's not like you're paying for your talent or your love. You're paying to maximize on the talent and love that you already have, that's already yours. So, going back, my mother, the church, Christianity as the foundation, and then now when we ask ourselves, okay, what is the question with Father and the love? What does love for men and from men look like? I think we've been healing on generational levels when it comes to that topic. And You can't, especially as a black person, but actually as every person, to be honest, you can't divorce reality from colonialism. It impacts everything. Ever since the 1800s, what you need to understand is that men have been at war and fighting over territories and fighting over consciousness and fighting over mind. For, and that might even be too close. It might even be longer than that, but guaranteed 1800s. Our entire identities have been based on surviving war. And war is not natural. Conflict is natural. Murder isn't. Murder is a normal abnormality. So it's one of those things that destroy societies and destroy people, but it happens. You know, rape has always happened. It doesn't make it normal. It's just a normal abnormality, which means it happens. But you can tell there's an element of sickness in how it came about. It didn't come about in a natural, flowing way. There had to be a certain disruption of the mind, the soul, in order for somebody to get to that point. So when it comes to men, when it comes to our fathers, in the South African context, from the time of Shaka Zulu, even Shaka Zulu, white people had been here for like 100 years already. The war and the friction that caused the violence had already erupted. The scarcity had already begun. And now we adopt that identity of war. And then there's another wave of colonialism because it happened in waves. The more guys get successful, the more they divide and conquer, the more they get families and royal families to fight amongst each other and split, the closer they are to their conquest. Now, in the 1900s, there's a whole other wave going on. And that wave is us now wearing suits and ties and trying to earn our humanity by telling them that we can live next to them if we can live like them. That's where they're pushing that mission now. Ukusikhulula impahla zethu. Yabo? At that point, people are even coming to Joburg to mine. People are being told, they're being charged. You were charged tax for a hut that you built. So you're paying tax for a hut that you built. The municipality is not providing you water or anything, but they're charging you with tax so that you can work on the mines. That's where the father leaves the household. The father is not there to actively raise the child. The father is now put in a position to be concerned with the practicalities of capitalism, the practicalities of colonialism, the practicalities of conquest, the practicalities of war. Now, your whole persona is embodied by an abnormality because war and murder is not normal. But it is now normalized by the people trying to take everything away from you. Everything. Everything. All of it. So by the time we are having fathers, there's so much broken chords that by the time it trickles to us, we have to be the radical change. We might even need to run the opposite direction to find equilibrium. And what I've found that to be, especially in my studies, femininity is patience. That's why our mother's love is patience. It's accepting. That's why people think that love means I can let you do whatever you want. If I love you, I never criticize you. If I love you, I don't really hold you accountable. If I love you, I don't confront you. And that's because of the hyper femininity that is a product of this war that we've been in. Because now the mothers have to overcompensate because the fathers are being killed, are being displaced, are being demoralized. And now the mother needs to be everything. But it's imbalanced. And that's not the mother's fault or femininity's fault. That's the fault of the war, the abnormal normality. And now, going back to, okay, then what is masculinity in the form of love? This is in the book, The Order of the Love Vibration. Please place your orders with me. And it sets a good foundation. It's not a long book. I made it short, accessible. It helps us get to this point of healing. Now, when it comes to the father aspect, fathers are disciplined. And that's what I can say that I did learn from my father. I think that even with all the critique I can have of the byproducts of the disease of the culture that he had to come from, that he is a victim of, right? With all those diseases, I can say the one thing that got us this far is discipline. It's discipline is understanding that we have openness, but there must be boundaries. There must be respect. There must be structure. There must be order. There must be development. Femininity in love is I accept you for who you are. And it needs the balance of I accept you of who you are, but if you're acting less than yourself, I'm not going to make you think that that's acceptable. Because if I love you, I want what's best for you. And if your conduct is not what is best for you, I'm going to call that out. And if I'm your father, I'm going to implement structures and borders and boundaries to ensure that you are guided in the borders of your potential that will rise you. That's where even the self-discipline comes in. If you love yourself, I can tell you that sometimes the most loving thing I can do for myself is deny myself of pleasures that take me away from my true contentment. Some things feel nice in the moment, but when the high goes off, you're worse off than you were before the high. And now you grow dependent on the high. Understand? But discipline tells you that let me endure the pains of sobriety whilst I build, because it is with a sober mind where I will truly build. So there's those two dynamics as you grow. And then I always reference this story because I think it's very important that everybody recognizes not all good things come from good things. And to really be a master of spirit and a master of your alchemy is to take the darkness you experience in your life, flip it, and turn it into light. You know what I'm saying? I'll call it the compost theory. When you take cow dung, people can just be one-track mind. You say cow dung is disgusting. Whereas all darkness needs to be transmuted into light. And it's only darkness, right? Because it's the waste from the cow. But the reason why it's a holy cow is because it can grow more grass for you. It can build homes for you and shelter for you. People shouldn't be living in zanks. They shouldn't. It's ridiculous. There shouldn't be a person without a roof if cows can poop the house. You know? There's medicine that can be made out of it. Because at the end of the day, the cow is eating a natural element that's from the earth. And then it's processing it through its body. Everything in its body, there's nothing unnatural because toxin, a lot of toxin that comes from filth comes from the filth we make. Even poison can be good if you know where to apply it. Understand? So I fell into depression because I was out of alignment with my true self. I was not creating anymore. I was not being an artist anymore. But I was at school and I was answering all the questions in class. But the education system also used to require us to remember things in verbatim, because you're remembering it in verbatim because even at your ultimate level as an academic, you are a very qualified housekeeper in the colonial context. You are upkeeping their company, upkeeping their land, upkeeping their power. You are not independently building your own thing. You are not building your own knowledge system. Your knowledge of the world is based on their first experience, and then they retell it to you. You study it for book. And then even if you see for yourself in life, there are other dynamic forces. You won't see it because he didn't see it for you and tell you about it. So they want us to become their robots and to remember what they said word for word and confirm that we understand what they said by saying it word for word. As a creative, as a producer, as a creator, as an entrepreneur, I need to do it to say that I know it. I need to do it myself. So the more now I tap into my love of my art, the more I'm understanding myself in totality. That's the power of love. Every time I chose to get into a substantial relationship with a woman, as opposed to sleeping around to prove something to other men, I understood myself. I got closer to healing within myself. And love is a personal journey, even when you're loving someone else. We must always give thanks to people for giving us an opportunity to platform and give our love so that we can learn about ourselves. Because the love you feel for someone is the love you feel, and how you act about is based on you. So your romance, the presence or the lack of your romance, is based on your relationship with yourself. And they serve as a platform for you to be able to express yourself. But that also means that when that chapter ends, you haven't lost that part of yourself. It's still with you. They're just not going to be experiencing it from you anymore, for whatever reason that may be. And I guess the reason is what makes it depend on if that was a loss or not. You know? And hey, listen, saying words like love is the highest vibration has been the ultimate test of my life. Because now the universe will test how much I mean that. And put me in a position to have to grow with my meaning of that. Understanding forgiveness, understanding patience, understanding my pride and my ego can get in the way of my love, my true self. And I think this one, Nkulumo Enkulu, we'll call this part one because it's such an extensive conversation. But my passion and my art became my compass and my love in life, right? And that guided me to be even making this video with you right now. So we're gonna call this the part one, and I'm gonna grow more into this conversation and expand on the heart chakra in part two. All love vibrations, my boy. You know what I mean? Simkhulu, kakhulu. Simakade siyabonga, Mbelingani siyabonga. We thank the source, we thank the highest light for taking us this far, and we give because we know we have faith that the returns can feed bloodlines. Siyabonga.